Hi, my name is Sadie Helberg, and I am going to be talking about the Me Too movement and how Hollywood was able to ignite social change. Throughout the presentation, I question whether the Me Too movement created substantial change or whether it was a fleeting moment in unity for America's elite. I will examine the history of sexual abuse in Hollywood, highlighting casting couches and a toxic culture. Then discuss the time between Tarana Burke creating the term in 2006 and the reignition of its use in 2017. Followed by taking a look at how #MeToo was brought into Hollywood and what changes were made in the industry afterward. I will finish with an analysis of the impact on other communities and the backlash everyday women now face. In the movie industry, there are many elites who have been allowed to assault, harass, and rape people for years. Casting couches, doing sexual favors for a chance in the industry, grotesque sexual marks, and other harassments are normalized in Hollywood. While some women are ignored when they come forward, others are gagged by non-disclosure agreements. In her 2019 book, #MeToo, Weinstein, and Feminism, Karen Boyle says, part of the reason the Weinstein story had not previously been made public was the inclusion of non-disclosure agreements in Weinstein's settlements, with those women who did raise complaints about his behavior or seek legal redress. Before discussing the Me Too movement further, I think it is important to highlight Tarana Burke's involvement in the movement and when it was first created. By saying Me Too in 2006, Burke wanted to reach urban young women and let them know that they were not alone. Her focus was on women of color as she felt they did not have the resources and support they needed. When movements are taken into mainstream, they run the risk of losing the intersectional aspect they started with. Me Too went from an intersectional movement designed to help marginalized victims to a movement associated strongly with Hollywood, which is mostly white and mostly privileged. Morgan Green quotes Burke saying, #MeToo is a global movement of survivors that, at its heart, centers the people who are pushed to the margins. Burke's focus remains on young women of color, because they are still pushed to the side. I now want to discuss how the Me Too movement reached Hollywood. In 2017, Ashley Judd accused Harvey Weinstein in a New York Times article of sexual harassment. While that ignited a conversation, Ronan Farrow's report from a 10-month investigation, published 5 days later, ensured the conversation was going to be had. And coincidentally, 5 days later, Alyssa Milano called for women to reply to her tweet with Me Too if they had been sexually harassed or assaulted. #MeToo was shared 12 million times on Facebook and 1 million times on Twitter in the following 24 hours. As months went on in Hollywood, more and more people spoke out against their perpetrators. Things were happening quickly, and it seemed as though someone new was being fired or accused every week. In September of 2018, Christine Ford accused Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh of sexual assault. This was a high point in the Me Too movement as the movement went out of Hollywood and into the political sphere. There was certainly a culture shift in Hollywood, but many prominent figures were somehow able to ignore the allegations against them. Of all the people in Hollywood that slipped through the Me Too movement, Woody Allen is the most interesting. Allen's son, Ronan Farrow, was the reporter for the New Yorker story against Weinstein. He helped to ignite the movement, but his adoptive sister Dylan continues to live without justice. There was success with the Me Too movement, and the following year, after the publication of the New York Times article, at least 200 prominent men lost their jobs. Some of these men may have never been convicted in the court of law, but public scrutiny was enough for them to lose their positions of power. It can be very difficult to prove assault, harassment, or rape in a court system, so at least these women got some sort of justice through the men losing their positions of power. The question becomes whether the #MeToo movement was a societal change or whether it was just for Hollywood. My initial instinct is to say that it was a societal change. Organizations like the Rape Crisis Network in England and the Rape, Abuse, Incest National Network in the United States both saw increases in the number of calls following the publication of the Times article. The conversation around sexual harassment and assault in the workplace has heightened. The number of people speaking out has increased. But how many of those victims see justice? The Me Too conversation is growing across industries and countries as more and more women find the courage to speak out against their abuser. However, there is still a long way to go before many of these women have access to justice. Some states, like New York and California, have created new laws regarding harassment training and making it easier for victims to reach a court trial. Non-disclosure agreements are also being questioned and even banned in some states because of previous abuses from them. It's very easy for a company to slap a non-disclosure agreement on someone or to reach a settlement. But is that true justice? While women in Hollywood get justice, there's a long way to go for women everywhere to get the same support and resources. Women who work freelance or at very small companies are still not protected under federal law from sexual harassment. Because of the Me Too movement, women have also seen a retaliation in the form of men staying away from them and not promoting them. Some men do not want to be alone with a woman, whether that be to discuss a project or to mentor her, because they fear that she will accuse them. I beg the question why men are so fearful if they do not harass or assault women. This has negatively impacted women. We need to educate people on what is acceptable in the workplace and what resources are in place for them. Hollywood was able to ignite the discussion and change itself, but now we must change the rest of society. Each step of the system needs to be corrected, from the judicial system to the workplace. Tarana Burke's vision of a global change around sexual assault is possible, but it will take work.